Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. What is sensorality? Got to be getting close. How does sensorality relate to cyclicality? Right, we've defined cyclic, we defined or identified click as an undefined, clear physical process, meaning we say this word click, what exactly is it? But I want to tell a quick story about my cousin. I actually have a cousin named Matt Click. So if you ever see this video, when I was running around as a kid saying click, 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 that's why. It's because it is a fundamental verb that has not been described articulately. But I have a cousin with the last name Click, and as a little kid, I would just run around just yelling click, click, click. But I had this, attenuation to words. And so that's why we finally figured it out. But sensorality sees, right? Sight is seeing. So just again, expanding all of these words, connecting sensorality. We build up the intuition, connecting the words. Sees is very symmetric, right? You have an SE, then an ES. And so again, what is this aspect? There is some sort of attempt at symmetry, but it can't be symmetric because of geometry and chirality. And so what kind of considerations can we make about geometry and symmetry or asymmetry to letters? Positivity, positionality, right? We know what positivity is, we know what position is. We said position is based on it because it is, but so is positivity. And so sorality, sensorality is positive. Speciality is negative. And you can notice, right, positive, again, with the set, I'm an English speaker from left to right, so left to right reading positive, you have a direct reading of it, right? Positive is based on it, position is based on it. But negative, right, see, it still has T and an I in it, but it's flipped, right? So how does, right, positive and negative, clearly opposites in terms of logic, physics, everything like that. What can we make a geometry, right? Posit in a negative, how we flip that I. Can we do some sort of formalize flipping that I, or a Ely, like I-L-I. In a lot of languages, again, that lowercase l gives a clear kind of bridging of symmetry, like an axis of reflection, so to speak. But just what kind of symmetric or asymmetric considerations and proving can we do around letters? But very clearly separating positivity, negativity, building out those connotations. Sorality, soritality, from sensorality and soritality. Again, just reiterating those bases. We've been over those dichotomistic pair. Position and opposite. Right, a while back, again, I don't know what episode, but I asked the question, do words have natural opposites? As a direct consequence of this asymmetry is very, very clear. Nothing is the exact same as anything else, so nothing can be completely symmetric. But was there natural opposites, right? Negative is clearly the opposite of positive. And so in this 3-dimension, is there, right, after those initial progressions of the universal phases, is dimension 3, you can't create matter or destroy matter, is there natural opposition within this set? Because from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, there isn't any natural opposites because it's a progression. But if you have a state, a stasis, equilibrium, this dynamic equilibrium that we are in, do you have a natural opposite? I think yes. But clearly there is the word opposite, right? We have the word sight, which is, right, sit, sight. So it's based, clearly opposite is built on position. And so a position is a sight. How does position relate to location? What is an address, right? And again, all of these things I pose and just don't respond to, it's because they're open questions. Right, clearly you say what a position is intuitively. We've worked that out a bunch so we can define that physically, because vibration condenses into mass. The condensation of that mass creates space, right? We've defined matter, not space. Space is just the absence of matter. But what is position to location? Both those words are very clearly intuitively similar, but what's the difference? What is the relationship? Blah, blah, blah. What is an address, right? If you're at a certain position, you give them an address. An address is an algorithm, right? But an address is distinctly not a recipe. So an algorithm is, it's clear how we can say an algorithm is a recipe. It's clear how we can say an address is an algorithm. But clearly an algorithm is not a recipe, or a recipe is not an address. And so, again, just differentiating, having that base, the logical base of algorithm directly relating to two things, and then those two things not relating to each other, showing the progression of logic. Mean, demeaning, meaning. You go from negative, neutral, back to negative. And just what is that interplay? Negative, neutral, positive. What statements can we make about that? Flux is proportional to pulse. Pulse, impulse. A pulse is a beat. Do you have a heartbeat? Oh, yep, he's got a pulse. Proof. Just connecting these things. Rituality and morality. How do they relate? How does morality relate to rituality? Right? You have a ritual. What are you doing? You're honoring tradition. Why do those things exist? Obviously, my pool table is still not going to join the cult of Satan or something. I don't know. But morality and rituality clearly are related. They're proportional. The more, again, morality, not even in a good or bad sense, just in more like traditional, right? In that sense. But morality and rituality are related. What is it? Humidity and fluidity, right? We asked entropicality is the basis of entropy. Tropical, you think of humid. But humid, you think of moisture. Moisture, you think of fluid. So how does humidity relate to fluidity? Right? If I said it's fluid or fluidity, kind of that just present context, just saying that word without any, you think of something that's smooth, something that's continuous. And so it's a fluid motion, right? And sometimes people say fluid or fluent. It's like, see, that's all of these things that I've said and built up to here, those are all true based on that. But humidity is proportional to fluid. Obviously, there's more fluid, there's more moisture, it's going to be more humid. But how does fluid, right? Fluid is linguistically related to field, right? We say a field, there's a value at every point of a field. An electron is an excitation of the electron field. But that's really because you can't model force as a particle, and particle physics is all fucked up. But people say, it's the most tested thing in physics. No, it's not. This is. Stop. Stop yourself, however, go home, you're drunk. But fluid and field are related linguistically. Again, literally the words. Fluidity and entropy, right? If you're fluid, right, fluidity is the opposition to resistance, right? If it's moving fluidly, it's not being resisted. If it's entropy, does that affect its fluidity directly? I mean, naturally, I want to say, right, if you put moisture in the air, you can sing better in the shower. Is that good? Is that more fluid? I don't know. What is the relationship? Fidelity and infidelity, right? Sensorality is fidelity. Speciality is infidelity, right? Sensorality censors infidelity, right? If you catch your spouse cheating on you, you're probably not going to call them an infidel, but they're engaging in infidelity. So, right, how do we have that, right? If you think infidel, you think of like you're defecting from Cuba in the 80s or something, right? You think of a much more political context than infidelity. You think of a personal romantic relationship context. Why? And how does that apply to other words? That's one example. How do we do this to go from connotation negative, connotation positive, connotation neutral? Just more examples. Derivationality and integrationality. What's the relationship? I asked last time, what is derivation? I'm in this big universe world. There's all this data out there. A bunch of information comes in. I synthesize and process as much as that information, and I do output. Each set being subsequently less than the previous. The universe having a lot more data than I process. The amount of things that I can prove is a lot less than the amount of things that I process. So that is derivation. Again, now we have to have this consideration of chronology. What came first? And so, because if you go to calculus class, what's the fundamental theorem of calculus? I believe they just directly say it's if you integrate the derivative of a function, you get the function itself. And so, yes, but why? What did we start with? Right? And so you started by derivation, and then you're integrating. Derivation is a lot more articulated than integration, right? Derivation, you get a slope of a function at a given point. You get the rate of change at a given point. Integration, Well, you have an infinitesimal, which is really reflective of, again, this fundamental minimum bound, and then we add up all of those minimum bounds to get a complete calculation, addition, right? Some form of addition. So integrationality, right? Language, litigation, and integration. Don't remember, that's still a part of this too. That whole lecture series. But point being is derivation came first, right? So you derive and then you integrate. So you integrate the derivative and get the function because you started with a derivative. You started with a base universe and then you derived something. Still super cumbersome with that tense of that word. All of it sounds funky, and there's a reason to it. Again, we're almost done with this axiom, but that's what happens. Is you start with derivation, you start with division. You're separating something, you're deriving, you're consolidating information from the world around you, and then you're integrating it after, right? You do a brainstorming session in a group and it's productive, and then you go think about the things you brainstorm together individually, then you integrate it, right? It's literally called an integration period if you go on a psychedelic trip, right? So it's, you see all of these things you literally already say, and I'm just connecting the context. People say A in this context, people also say A in this context, they're the same thing. But derivation comes before integration. The reason the fundamental theorem of calculus is you integrate the derivative as opposed to, right, you don't derive from the integral, right? You integrate the derivative. But that is a direct consequence of the proof of chronology. Well, the existence of chronology that we happen to prove like a fucking week ago. Maybe if that. So that was poignant for me for sure. Integrate, derivate, sensorality derivates. Speciality aggravates. Right? If you aggravate somebody, if you antagonize, sexual antagonism aggravates. Right? Now, antagonism can be a little less like emotionally charged, right? If you're an antagonist in a story, people don't like you, but again, it's not protagonist and antagonist is not definitive. There's not an objective morality you're basing that on. But aggravation is clearly like it has a negative connotation. If someone's aggravating you, you're not enjoying it. But aggravate is directly related linguistically to gravitate, right? Sensorality gravitates, it attracts. Speciality aggravate, it repulses. So sensorality gravitates. What establishes a complete answer? We are deriving the question to say, what is sensorality? And then there'll be a definitive statement that you cannot deny because it'll be literally just a direct iteration of letter. But just in general, what is a complete answer? Well, first, they exist. You can completely answer questions, but you have to pose, right? The point of research and the poignancy of research is finding the right question to ask. For me, for you, for anybody. And so, but the point is, complete answers exist. And so then, like, what formulation of a question, or what goes into being able to completely answer something, right? If I say, like, I'm trading stocks right now. If I say, do I think stocks are going to go up? Yes. Do I think this stock is going to go up this time? Maybe. I could have a trading thesis. Do I know it's going to happen? No. And so you have to structure the question in a way that it can be answered completely. What is that structure? How does timing relate to consistency? Timing is chronological. Chronology exists. We've proven it. Timing is everything because of chronology. Timing is everything because why? But timing is chronological. What is the opposite of liability? We discussed the natural definition of liability is the ability to lie, and that presents risk, hence the internal inherent definition of liability. But what's the opposite of liability? Well, we already have a definition in another part of ontology. It's an asset. And so, sensorality is an asset. Speciality is a liability. Right? Asset's an interesting word. It's literally an amalgamated word, as set. What is property? Right? Property is an asset. Well, what are properties? Temperature, momentum, those are properties. What is the relationship? Oh, that's right, it's the consistency of language. It's sensorality. What is properties parties? Right? That word party. You go out into a social function, you go to a party. What are you saying? Parties? So sensorality parties. partition, position. And I forget but we'll go back to parties. Sensorality participates. Party, participate. Participate, participle. Participle, particle. Sensorality is a particle. Speciality is a particle. Sensorality is a wave. So now we've rederived is it a particle, is it a wave? Well, we differentiated them. Right? The universe expands, we have to expand our logical comprehension of what our words can map, what our words can describe. And we're proving the internal consistency ad nauseum because this is the first time it's ever been done and you have to show every step. You can't break language. Me, you, anybody. You can't break the laws of physics, and physics or language is a physical system. And so it's the difference between, again, knowing how to drive a car and knowing where every bolt in a car goes. And so once you get the blueprints, once you get everything down, you kind of whip through it. But when you're establishing everything, which hasn't been done yet, and you never complete scientific research, you have to prove each step. That's why mathematics is a subject at all. Goodness gracious. But speciality is a particle. So why did I just define sensorality as a particle and then speciality as a particle? Because remember, sensorality has to contain the entirety of the speciality definition. So we have to continue to expand speciality while continuing to contain speciality within our new axiom, sensorality. But speciality is a particle, right? Speciality is individual. It differentiates. Particles differentiate. Waves are continuums, are mediums. So sensorality is continuous. Speciality is discrete. Sensorality is frequent. Speciality is infrequent. Continues the logic without any breaking. And so why did I want to get back to parties? But just right, you have a part. A fraction is a part. If you party something, right? Party is not well defined. Right? A social function, sure, but like what parties? And so like if I had more than one part, right? Is parties to the word party like I'm doing a social function, or like properties to parties? And so another word that is, again, extremely common that we use every single day, and it's like, what is it? It's where we go hang out with our friends. It's not rigorous. And so, again, and all words relate. Because, again, what's overwhelmingly clear is, again, logic from one context is consistent, and you just map it to another context. That's all we're doing. A plus B equals C, or A plus B equals C, the law of syllogism, substitution, iteration, plugging it in. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.